Hey, Fuge staffers. So hopefully now you've seen the performance of the song and the training video where I broke down each sign. I just wanted to make a little video for you of tips of things that I did when I taught the Fuge interpretive sign tracks, and things that worked out well for me. Maybe if it's your first summer working, or maybe you've done it before and you just want some ideas of how to do it differently. These things helped out my class. So on the first day of class, I would make sure to have the gloss for the song copied for everyone that you'll have in your track. And also during training week, take some time to use poster board and write out the gloss of the song really big with thick black Sharpie. I think I would try to get it on like 3 or 4 poster boards, and then I would put those up on the board if you have a whiteboard in your room, or on the wall somehow with tacks. And that way, as students were learning it in the classroom, they could look up on the wall, and I could also point to the words and have them there available to look at. Another thing I would do at the beginning, the very first, when kids come in the room at the beginning of the week, I would go over the alphabet in ASL, and maybe, half your class already knows it, but that's just easy so that they have the letters to reference when you say, like, this sign uses the Y hand shape, or this sign uses the A hand shape. They know what you're talking about. You can also use this, take 10 minutes, go over the alphabet. You could have that copied. If you just Google ASL ABCs, you can print out pages that have the alphabet, have that available to give out to kids who've never learned it before. And then you could have them turn to a neighbor and introduce themselves in sign language. So you could just take a few minutes to teach, hi, my name is Ashley, your name, what? And the person finger spells it to them, and then teach them, nice to meet you, and the other person says, nice to meet you. That serves a couple purposes. One, it gets people to know other people's names in your room. It's a little icebreaker. And also, that's kind of the most important basic 2 sentences that you should know if you are out in the world and you were to see a deaf person, would be to tell someone your name, ask them their name, and say nice to meet you. So you could take a few minutes to do that on the first day if you'd like. Then I would start off with teaching the chorus, since it happens in the song several times. So I would teach that first, and then try to teach maybe the first verse on the first day of class. And then the second day of your track, try to finish out the second verse and the bridge. That way, I'm assuming you'll have 4 days of track time. You'll have to really cram this in if you have only 3 days to teach. But if you have 4 days of track before you perform it in a worship service, then you spend your first 2 days really teaching it and doing it over and over. You have your third day to practice it and get some formation changes, perhaps, that I'll talk about in a second. And then your 4th day, you can talk with your program director to try to get into your worship center and on stage and get your kids spots and practice it a couple times so that they feel more comfortable doing it on the stage or the worship area. Let me think what else. Yeah, so I like to use some just like formation changes, just to give it a little bit more variety and creativity. So for instance, in this song, it starts off with saying, I am unashamed, and then it has those, oh, that part. I think I would start with one person in the middle of the stage that signs that one line, I am unashamed, and then during those O's, where it's just vocalization without words, I would have maybe half of the group come on to their spots, and then they all sign, I am unashamed, and then I think it says the oh part again, and then I would have the rest of the kids walk on during that part, so that by the time the first verse starts, everyone's on stage. Another place to add variety would be the end, when it says, let the waters rise, let the mountains shake, we lift our anthem high. So I would maybe divide your group into 3 groups, and whether it's front row, middle row, back row, or left side of the stage, middle, right side of the stage, each group just signs one part of that. So if your front row signs, let the waters rise, the middle row signs, let the mountains shake, the back row signs, we lift our voices high, and then they all sign, unashamed, and then you do it again and again. A third idea that you could use, I always like having everyone spread out and fill up the whole stage area until the end of the song. And then if there's a little bit of musical interlude before the last time through the choruses, you have everyone come together into a really compact group. And you'll have to work on that, making sure you have enough time to get there. Have a row down on their knees, sitting all the way down, and then a row really close right behind them, up on their knees, and then a row behind them standing up. And you sign the chorus again. And it just looks really cool to have a group of 20 or 30 people signing really close together. It emphasizes that. So you could just play around with those ideas. If it's a group one week where your students are really struggling to learn the signs and feel comfortable, of course, you don't need to worry about any of that. But if your group, if you have a lot of people who have done a lot of interpretive sign before and they catch on to the signs really quickly, then you might want to do some of these suggestions just to make it more fun for them. So also after the 2 days of where you're really working on learning it, and then the third day, I just drill the song over and over and over. So that kind of gets monotonous for an hour of that. I would do things like, this time through, we're going to sign it really tiny. And so you do the whole song really little bitty and maybe just sign it with your fingers. Or you call out halfway through, okay, sign it huge. And so you do it really big. And then we'll say like, okay, this time through, sign it like a robot. And everyone signs it real stiff. And that just lets people who are really nervous about it kind of see that it's not that big of a deal. And they can have fun and laugh with you about it. You can come up with all kinds of silly ways to sign it, and it just helps with that repetitive nature of doing the song 10 times in an hour. Well, come up with 10 silly ways to do it, and that helps that time pass better. Another thing I would do at the end of every class would be to turn the lights off, make the room completely black, and say that we are going to sign it through this time through to God only. I'm not watching you. No one else in the room is watching you. If you only get one sign correct and you just sit there the rest of the time and think about the lyrics and think about them as your prayer to God, then that's what I want you to do. You know, or I would tell people they could spread out, they could lay on the ground, they could face a wall, but the lights are out and they can't watch anyone and no one can watch them. And I would just talk about how we use sign language with music to worship the Lord primarily. And that even when we're doing it on the stage in front of everyone in the auditorium at the end of the week, it's still just to God. And in our hearts, we should be just standing before his throne. And so I would end every class with doing as much as we know of the song on the first 2 days. And then at the end of the week, doing it one last time before we dismissed in a pitch black room. And that was always really, really powerful. And students and adults love that. 2 more things. You should get an email with a page that says resources. And that's a whole page of things I've compiled for websites of where to learn sign language, websites on if a student says they feel called to it and want to study sign language in college, there's some websites on there for deaf missions. Now that page, I just checked, I typed that up in 2010, so it's 6 years old, which is crazy to me. Time flies. That was the last summer that I worked camp, so it feels like not 6 years ago, but it is. So you might want to check those websites and make sure that that's still accurate. But I would make a copy of that, not for everyone in your room, but if you have kids coming to you saying, I really feel like this is what God is calling me to do, or I'm super interested in studying sign language more, then I would give that to them, and that could be a good help to them. Be sure to share your story sometime during the week, how you are into sign language, how God has used sign language in your life. For me personally, at Union University Fuge, when I was a senior in high school, taking the interpretive sign track, God called me to become an interpreter and to change my career plans forever, to change where I had planned to go to college, to pursue a degree in sign language interpreting. And through that, I've met deaf people. I've shared the gospel with deaf children at my job. And so I would share that story, and also I would share every day my own missions emphasis and talk a little bit about the number of deaf people in America and the number of deaf people worldwide who do not know the gospel and have never heard Jesus' name because there simply are no Christians telling it to them in their sign language. So you can think about just a short little missions moment, if you could fit that into your class time each day somehow. You can talk about how sign language is not universal and that every country has at least one sign language. Some countries have many sign languages for different dialects, and how just as God is calling missionaries to different people groups around the world for each spoken language, he's calling people to different people groups to learn their sign language. And you could also say that being a missionary to deaf people might mean becoming an interpreter and being a Christian interpreter in a public school setting, or being a Christian interpreter in the deaf community. And so you might have kids that feel really called to that and are very interested in that as something to think about in their future. I think that was pretty much it. Oh, one last thing. You might have students who just flat out say, I do not want to perform this on stage. I just wanted to take this to learn the song, but I don't have any interest in doing it in front of people. So, of course, you don't want to force anyone, but every week I feel like I would have one or two people say that to me, and I would just work on them throughout the week, just really affirming them, making sure they felt comfortable, making sure they understood the signs if they learn at a slower rate than the majority of the class, make sure that I'm not leaving them behind. And I would also try to take one of my free times each week. Towards the end of the week, maybe if we were performing the song on Saturday morning, maybe like on the Thursday free time or the Friday free time, say in my interpretive sign track, I would say, okay, today at the fountain at 4 o'clock, I'll be there if anyone wants to be there to go over the song with me. And you might not have anyone show up, but you might have 2 or 3 kids who are super nervous and really struggling, and they want to make sure that they know it. And so they might show up and you go over the song once or twice, and then you can just hang out with them and get to know them better. And that's something that really you're showing them that you care about them more than just teaching them the song and then it's done, that you really want to get to know them outside of class too. So that's another idea for you. Well, anyway, I hope that you have a great summer. If you have any questions, email me, or you can email Haley and she can give you my email address or whatever. And yeah, I hope that you have a great summer. Bye.